The world can be a dangerous place. Gear up with the industry's original and most trusted laser sighting system from Crimson Trace. Equipping your firearm with laser and light systems will enhance your effectiveness and help keep you and your family out of harm's way. Call 800-442-2406 or visit crimsontrace.com and receive a free copy of our new laser training video, The Laser's Edge. Crimson Trace.
Today on Gun Talk, pigs must be flying. A federal court rules that California can't ban concealed carry. A leading mayor in Bloomberg's anti-gun group heads to federal prison. And a new program trains teachers to carry guns in schools. And your phone calls at 866-TALK-GUN. Stand by for Tom and Lock and Load.
All right, settle in. Put this thing in gear because we are going to be going fast today. You better put on your seatbelt. A lot of things going on. Yes, we have big news. Actually, we had news that broke even after we put together our promo for this show. I mean, things are happening as of this morning. We had last week, just 3 days ago now, the Ninth Circuit out in California, big case out there. And then this morning, a monster story breaking, and we'll give you a little bit more about that as we go along. But Remington Firearms expanding, moving, depends on who you talk to, down to Alabama from New York. Union officials in New York say it's due to New York's passage of the SAFE Act, driving jobs out of New York. Of course, the governor says, oh, no, that's not what's going on. Yeah, really. I'll tell you, this case out of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on Thursday is huge, and it's huge to everybody because it's going to drive this case to the Supreme Court. And essentially what happened is the Ninth Circuit said, California, no, you can't do this. You can't ban open carry and concealed carry. You have to allow one or the other. And so the question is California going to become a shall-issue state? Now, we grabbed one of the leading constitutional scholars in the country to talk about this, and we grabbed him just hours after this decision was handed down. Here's my conversation with Professor Eugene Volokh. Well, just a couple of days ago, we had a very important decision come out of California, the Ninth Circuit. I know you're thinking, the Ninth Circuit, they never did anything good for gun owners. Well, actually, that's not correct at all. But in this case, they actually did do something very important. It is a case that a lot of us have been watching for many years. And honestly, there's no one better to explain what happened and what it means to us than Dr. Eugene Volokh. Eugene, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Very much my pleasure.
All right. The case is Peruta versus County of San Diego. This case has been going on for some period of time. Let me see if I can set this up. Essentially, California required, or San Diego required, if you were getting a concealed carry permit, you had to show good cause. And that was what was challenged in this case. The Ninth Circuit said, no, you cannot require that. How am I doing so far?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So in essence, and the key here for people to understand is that under the Heller decision, Heller said you cannot prohibit people from carrying guns. You could either require them to carry openly or concealed, but you can't say you just can't carry a gun because that's part of the keep and bear arms. That's the bear part of that. And California was essentially, or at least San Diego was essentially saying, well, you can't carry openly, and we're going to make it so difficult that you essentially can't carry concealed. Is that about what happened?
Well, Heller and McDonald made clear that the government can't ban gun possession.
Okay.
Now, I think that a fair reading of Heller is that the same would apply to gun carrying in public. But Heller didn't specifically hold that. And in fact, some federal circuit courts, federal appellate courts, and some state supreme courts said, well, no, Heller applies only to possession in the home, and possession in public, that can be restricted. Mm-hmm. But now the Ninth Circuit and the Seventh Circuit in the Midwest, and some state supreme courts have taken the opposite view. It said, no, right to keep and bear arms includes the right to carry, to bear in the sense of carrying guns, and the government can't completely ban such carrying or say only people whom we like can carry.
Exactly. And I should point out for people who are saying, well, what does this guy know about it? Dr. Volokh teaches First Amendment law, Second Amendment law, criminal law, UCLA School of Law. you've done. And frankly, as I understand it, you were cited, I think, 4 times in the decision, this particular decision out of the Ninth Circuit. This is an area that you know, as you follow the Second Amendment and specifically what's happened after Heller and McDonnell, we've had courts coming down kind of in various positions on this, and a lot of us have been thinking, well, eventually this must lead us back to the Supreme Court to sort this out. Does this case get us closer to that?
Yes, I think that's right. Generally speaking, the U.S. Supreme Court takes only 1% of all of the cases that it's asked to hear. And I mean that literally. It's basically asked to hear about 8,000 cases a year. It hears about 80.
Wow.
So its view is, look, everybody's entitled to their day in court. They're entitled to their day in the Court of Appeals, but they're not entitled to their day with us. We'll only choose to hear those cases that are of national importance. One important signal that something's of national importance for the Supreme Court to take is if lower courts disagree on the subject. And now that you've got this pretty serious split between courts of appeals, federal courts of appeals, and between state Supreme Courts, that makes it very likely that the court will say, all right, it's time for us to weigh in. Now, even without this case, it might have so concluded because there was already disagreement between, say, the Seventh Circuit and the Illinois Supreme Court and a couple of other courts on one side, Second, Third, and Fourth, and Massachusetts State and New York State and some other courts on the other side. But this makes it even more likely the court will say, look, there's a serious disagreement on this federal constitutional issue. Whatever the Second Amendment means, it has to mean the same thing throughout the country. We're going to step in. Now, it's possible it won't step in this case. There's a case pending before the court right now coming from the Third Circuit, so from mid-Atlantic states, that the court might decide to hear. But one or the other, it seems pretty likely that the court will decide to hear this case. Will decide to consider this issue.
Now, the Drake case out of New Jersey, I believe it is, that's on similar basis where they essentially had to show good cause. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Generally speaking, most states, historically it used to be in over 40 states, you either couldn't carry concealed at all, or you had to show good cause, and that's always up to the local police chief to decide. Now it's the other way around, that over 40 states, 42 states, basically allow anybody to get a license to carry concealed, although some of them don't even require a license. One thing I should note about this, the U.S. Supreme Court has said there is no right to carry concealed. And the reason is the Supreme Court's decision in Heller was a very historically grounded decision. And what the court said is, look, the history is that from just 20 years after the Second Amendment was enacted, there were state laws that banned concealed carry. They allowed open carry, but they banned concealed carry. So as a result, there's this history of banning concealed carry, and that's okay. What the Ninth Circuit said is when a state bans both open carry and concealed carry, when it essentially bans, with very few exceptions, any carrying in public, that's what's unconstitutional.
Aha. All right. So we have this decision that just came out of the Ninth Circuit. As you and I are speaking, it happened literally hours ago. And people are saying, so what does it mean? What can I do? Can I apply for a carry permit? There are probably several steps along the way before that happens. Oh,
yes, that's right. So first, I imagine that the defendants are going to go and ask the Ninth Circuit to rehear the case through a so-called en banc process. This is a 3-judge panel, which split 2-1. They could ask for it to be reheard by an 11-judge panel. And while this rehearing takes place, basically there'll be no court order coming out. What's more, even if and then after the en banc rehearing is done, let's say after the process is done, so maybe the court will say, no, it's not worth our time to rehear en banc. Then they'll ask the U.S. Supreme Court to consider the issue. And then, let's assume the Ninth Circuit and the U.S. Supreme Court refuse to hear it, then it'll go back down, and there'll be an order to the San Diego authorities saying, hey, now you guys have to issue licenses. And at that point, California legislature would have to decide, should it essentially turn California into a shall-issue state and authorize the issuance of licenses to pretty much all eligible law-abiding adults, or would it just say, hey, okay, we'll allow open carry, will ban concealed carry or keep concealed carry in a tightly licensed system. And if you want to carry, you carry open carry, and then the legislature might expect that social pressure and the worry about being stopped by the police will deter a lot of people from open carry. So there's a lot going on here.
So we are not weeks, not months, possibly even years before this gets sorted out.
I think that's probably right. It needn't necessarily be so. In Illinois, for example, after the Seventh Circuit held the Illinois system to be unconstitutional, the Illinois legislature pretty promptly implemented a shall-issue system. To be sure, a restricted one in various ways, but still basically a shall-issue system. Much more protective of people's self-defense rights than what they had before. I just don't think that's likely in California. I think the California legislature is going to probably try to keep fighting it as much as possible.
All right, let me ask you, with your background, both as a scholar in both First Amendment and Second Amendment issues, I have heard it described that the Second Amendment, particularly in the last 20 years or so, possibly starting with Sanford Levinson's the embarrassing Second Amendment and the scholarship that was done after that, the Second Amendment is where the First Amendment may have been 50 or 100 years ago in terms of becoming a strong right. How do you compare that?
Well, yes, I do think that we are still in the very early days of Second Amendment case law and Second Amendment being really enforced by judges, roughly where the First Amendment was, say, in the 1930s, after the very first decisions securing free speech rights. I will say that constitutional rights are different. They're not identical. They can't be subject to identical rules. And I don't think it's likely, for political reasons and ideological reasons, they'll be subject to identical rules. So anybody who says, well, the Second Amendment should be treated just as the First Amendment has been, it's hard to know how you translate some First Amendment principles, libel, obscenity. How do you translate that into Second Amendment law? And on top of that, I don't think that judges are going to be as militant in protecting right to keep and bear arms as they have been in protecting freedom of speech. But I do think that we're seeing now that there's at least some degree of substantial protection being offered.
So as you look at the entire landscape of what's going on in the courts relative to the Second Amendment, what's the importance of this case out of the Ninth Circuit?
It makes it more likely that the U.S. Supreme Court will hear the case. And if the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't hear the case, but the decision stands, then it'll make it more likely, not by any means certain, but more likely that eventually California will join the 42 other states in the shall-issue column.
By the way, we should explain to people that they can read your writings at the Volokh Conspiracy, which is now part of the Washington Post, correct?
It's now hosted on the Washington Post. If you go to volokh.com, VOLOKH.com, then in that case you'll be redirected to it. But we're still independent. We still have editorial independence. As you might gather, Washington Post isn't exactly the most pro-gun place, but they let us be who we are. And the other thing that people could do if they want to, if they're interested in just our gun-related posts, they can subscribe to our Twitter feed, which is at Volokh Guns. And if you subscribe to Volokh Guns, you'll get just our gun posts.
You are able to take legal issues which are quite complex and make them understandable for the rest of us who did not go to law school, for which I very much appreciate your efforts.
Well, I'm delighted to hear you say that. We try, and I'm glad we sometimes succeed.
Yes, indeed. Again, thank you so much.
Crossbreed Holsters is broadening our product selection to serve more of your concealed carry needs. With products handmade in the USA, like the bedside backup, gun belts, and of course our world-famous Super Tuck and Mini Tuck holsters, we understand what works, and we take pride in providing you with a quality product. At Crossbreed Holsters, we live and breathe concealed carry. We make and sell products that we believe in and products that our customers love. To see more, go to crossbreedholsters.com. That's crossbreedholsters.com.
Are you looking for a place to shoot? The National Shooting Sports Foundation has a great website called wheretoshoot.org. It's the largest database of shooting ranges on the internet. It's also a great resource for shooters where you can find video tips, printable targets, and a lot more. Find it online at wheretoshoot.org. And while you're there, download their free iPhone app. That's wheretoshoot.org.
Brownells proudly celebrates 75 years of history and heritage,
as the world's first choice for firearms, accessories, ammunition, and gunsmithing tools. So whether you're a gunsmith in need of parts and supplies, a new shooter looking for the perfect holster, or a skilled competitor seeking the latest gear, Brownells has what you need. And best of all, every purchase comes with the industry's only forever satisfaction guarantee. Visit us at Brownells.com.
Have you ever held a Walther? Walther handguns are an extension of your hand. From the moment you hold the ergonomic grip of a Walther, you feel the difference. Today, Walther continues its long tradition of expertise in firearm design with the introduction of 3 incredible new handguns: the smooth PPQM2, the tough PPX, and the cool PPKS22. Log on now at WaltherArms.com. Walther at your favorite retailer.
A great trigger can make you a better shooter. For over 60 years, Timney triggers have been trusted by hunters and shooters everywhere. Timney triggers are proudly made in the USA and come with a lifetime warranty. Installation is easy. Give yourself the Timney Trigger advantage. To see more and order online, go to timneytriggers.com. That's TIMNEY triggers.com.
Be sure and register for the Excess Sights Love at Front Sight giveaway. Grand prize winner gets a Remington 870 Tactical Express Shotgun with XS front and rear sights, custom lasered with the XS Sight and Gun Talk logos. 10 winners will win an XS Sights Good Guy swag bag, complete with a $200 gift certificate to put toward a pair of XS Sights. Enter to win right now at guntalk.com/win through February 28th. Good luck, and now back to Tom.
All right, back with the 866 Talk Gun. We'll get you in here. That's dial 1 Tom Talk Gun. A lot of news happening right now. We've got this story breaking out of New York State. Remington Arms is going to open a factory in Alabama. It's going to be officially announced tomorrow. It's not actually been announced. So they're going to do a big announcement in Alabama, but the word is out. And it's been very interesting. Of course, New York passed this SAFE Act. It's a really strict gun control act. And well, what's interesting is where the blame is falling. We have one union representative up in New York is saying that Remington, their decision to open a manufacturing plant in Alabama, says he's blaming it completely on New York SAFE Act. He says it can't be good, said Fran Midori. She did, rather. Fran, president of the United Mine Workers Local 717, which represents 1,180 of the 1,300 Remington employees in Ilion, New York. She says, how can it be good? She said plant officials, or I guess it is a guy, plant officials told him they wanted to meet with him Monday. They did not say what they wanted to talk about. Midori says he assumes it will be about the company's reported plans to open a 500,000 square foot manufacturing plant in Huntsville, Alabama. Quote, this is from the union official. The SAFE Act has been a terrible thing from the beginning, he said. You'd think New York would be doing everything to keep us. Instead, it passes a law that cripples us. Now, of course, we also get this response from New York Governor Cuomo's office. They respond in a tweet that says that they're not going to lose any jobs at all, that opening a plant in Alabama is not going to cost them jobs. Let's see. Governor Andrew Cuomo, spokesman, says on Twitter, no Remington jobs leaving New York for Alabama. Yeah, really? Yeah, that's what Remington's going to do. They're going to open a 500 million square foot plant in Huntsville, Alabama, where, by the way, it's right to work. And they're going to continue to make guns in a really, really old, it's historic, it's fabulous building and all that, but it's a very old, with union representation, in New York, in a state that has said, we don't want you here, in a state where the governor has said, if you believe in, quote-unquote, assault weapons, you have no place in New York State. Well, we'll see. That's going to be very interesting. Now, this follows on the heels of other gun companies leaving anti-gun states. Beretta informed the state of Maryland, if you pass this gun control law, we will leave. And surely the people, the legislators and the governor in Maryland thought, oh, sure, right. Companies don't just up and leave. Once again, showing that they have no idea. They don't know anything about the gun business. They don't know anything about the gun industry. And they sure as heck didn't know anything about the Beretta family, because this is not even a company that's publicly owned. They don't have to answer to stockholders. And when Mr. Ugo Beretta tells you, we're going to leave if you do this, and then you do this, you can bet the farm he's going to leave. Now, they may be saying, we're going to expand, we're going to open an additional plant. Well, you got to open the new one before you can transition from the old one, don't you? You don't just shut down and then stop production. You have to have the other one running. And my expectation is, with absolutely no inside information whatsoever, haven't talked to anybody at Remington about it, but my expectation is that they will be transitioning from their New York facility. By the way, I did talk with one of the very highly placed people at Remington at SHOT Show who told me that they have made a commitment to get seriously into the handgun business. They have the R51. Of course, they've had their 1911 for a couple of years now. They brought out the R51 pistol this year, and they want to be a major player in handguns. So this new plant could certainly be part of that. We have Magpul, which is moved out of Colorado after they told Colorado, if you pass this law, we will leave. What's interesting is you'll note in all of these states, these are democratically controlled states, the governor Democrat. The legislature is dominated by Democrats who run on being pro-job and pro-labor. What's going to happen in the midterm elections and in 2016 when these politicians have to stand up there and say, we're pro-jobs, we're pro-labor, and yet what's going on here is they're driving jobs out of the state. Driving jobs out of the state. So what's going to happen then? I don't know. One would hope that voters would remember. One would hope that we would remind them that their elected leaders have driven jobs out of state. We'll see what happens with the big announcement tomorrow about Remington. That announcement's going to be made in Alabama. Texas, Alabama, other states are attracting companies to come to them. Gun companies are moving, frankly, they're moving south. They're moving west where there's more freedom, less control, less restrictions from the government. That is, after all, what gun ownership really is all about.
Have you taken your family, friends, and kids shooting lately? You're listening to Tom Gresham's Gun Talk, and we'll be right back. Want to be a guest on the show? Drop us a line at info@guntalk.com. You're listening to Gun Talk with Tom Gresham.
All right, welcome back to Gun Talk. Our number is 866-825-5486. You can also just dial 1, Tom Talk Guns. You can shoot me an email, tom@guntalk.com. Over on Twitter, I'm at Gun Talk. We've got a conversation going on over there. Join us. Also, by the way, don't forget, we do give away stuff around here. We're doing a giveaway, very cool giveaway this month. You're going to be able to get, somebody's going to get, a Remington 870 Tactical Express shotgun with upgraded XS sights, standard dot front, and rail ghost ring sight. And the gun is custom lasered with the XS sights and the Gun Talk logo. We've never done that before. You can enter for a chance to win at guntalk.com/win. That will get you there. Okay, you may have heard this. This is a big story down here. And I know it sounds like a local story, but I wanted to bring this up because it's important in the whole scheme of national gun rights, media coverage, Mayor Bloomberg, his illegal mayors against guns, which is what I call it. Another one of the very prominent mayors in the Bloomberg gun control group, they call it the mayors against illegal guns. I call it illegal mayors against guns because so many of them have been convicted and sent to prison. So many of them. And this week, another one was convicted and is going to go to federal prison for somewhere between 10 and 20 years. I'm talking about New Orleans' very own Ray No Gun, or actual name is Nagin, but I dubbed him Ray No Gun right after Hurricane Katrina. Understand that this was a prominent gun control advocate, but there's more to the story and something that the media is not telling you. And I wanted to remind you of this, and let me bring in my good friend Gordon Hutchinson right now. He is a co-author of The Great New Orleans Gun Grab, Descent into Anarchy. Hey, Gordon, how are you?
Good afternoon, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Well, as you watch this whole deal with Ray Nagin being tried and convicted on 20 out of 21 counts, federal crimes, and you being the co-author of The Great New Orleans Gun Grab, I was going to ask you, can you kind of remind people what happened with guns and what Nagin did during Katrina?
Well, what happened was that the people that elected to stay behind after the hurricane, and a lot of them were people who had lost a lot after Betsy, so they knew what was going to happen. There was going to be looting. The looting after Betsy in 65 was just incredible. And Katrina promised to be even worse, and they knew this, so a lot of them elected to stay behind. And those that stayed behind, generally, see, there was a mandatory evacuation order. Okay, I call it the three great misconceptions of Katrina and New Orleans. The misconceptions, the things that drove this, there was no confiscation of guns. New Orleans was under martial law, and there was a mandatory evacuation order which you had to obey. All of that's incorrect. There was confiscation of guns.
Right.
There was never martial law called in New Orleans. And it's interesting, Tom, on that particular subject, the first time martial law was ever established in the United States was under General Andrew Jackson, during the War of 1812 and the Battle of New Orleans. He established martial law in the city of New Orleans at that time. There was never martial law established during Katrina. And the last of the great misconceptions was that the mandatory evacuation order, and you had to leave. And we joke about it. A lot of attorneys I talked to about that said, no, they can't force you to leave your house. You have the option of being stupid if you want to be. Okay?
Just because they call it mandatory doesn't mean it is mandatory. They put that name on it, but it is a suggestion. We urge you to leave, but we can't force you to leave.
That's correct. And actually, the authorities all over learned something from that when whichever one it was hit the Texas a couple of years afterwards. We heard their warnings down there, and they were saying it is a mandatory evacuation order. You have to leave. If you choose not to leave, do not expect any emergency services for 24 hours after the storm has passed. So they were covering themselves.
Right, but Gordon, fast forward, if you would, to the gun grab, because that's the part we want to get to.
Well, those three things are what drove the people that were doing all of the gun grabbing. But where that came from was Nagin got tired. We finally figured it out in writing the book. Nagin got tired of being criticized in the media by all the people that were down there. And if you stayed behind, you were generally something of a rebellious sort, because you were standing up to the people that were, the powers, the authorities to begin with. So every time somebody would stick a microphone in their face, they'd start berating Nagin, berating Blanco, berating how it was going on, just that and the other. Nagin basically got tired of it, and he told Eddie Compass, the police chief, run them out of town. And Compass made his famous no-gun speech standing there in front of an ABC News crew about 4 days after the hurricane, or somewhere in the first week. And from that point on, it was it was anarchy. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of the cops just went crazy
Well, they did. Let me jump in here, because what they did is they went door to door. They actually went in houses. They took guns. They took guns away from people who were there. They took guns from empty houses. And then when it was all over, they denied that they did it. And they said, we don't have any guns. We don't know what you're talking about, until you got down there.
That's correct.
So where'd you find the guns?
For a year and a half.
Where'd you find the guns?
They were stored in a locker on the what had become the police property division, when there was a big, like the back of an 18-wheeler, a big container, and they were rotted and rusty and destroyed and no good for nothing. And New Orleans was, by that time, after fighting it, the NRA fighting it, and us fighting it and going down it, we finally got them to admit it. And they opened that locker and let us get in there, and we inventoried the guns. And they were under a federal court order to try to give the guns back. But, of course, as one cop told an investigator for the NRA, I hate to admit it, but if they were nice, the guys kept them. If they were junk, they threw them in the lakes and in the canals.
So the cops the cops kept the good guns, the rotten ones they threw away, and some of them ended up in this trailer back there. And the only reason that it ever came out was because Nagin was facing a personal, not for the city, but a personal contempt charge if he didn't comply with this. Gordon, the book is called The Great New Orleans Gun Grab, and it's still available for sale, I gather.
Oh, yeah, you can get it on Amazon, The Great New Orleans Gun Grab. And just Google it or go on Amazon and type it in.
That'll work, man. Listen, I appreciate it. I've got so many folks lined up here. I've got to keep scooting. But I did want people to know about this when they hear the news about Ray Nagin and him being corrupt, and a crook, and he's a convicted crook, going to federal prison now. I want to remind them, this is what you get. This is the Mayors Against Illegal Guns. This is the Bloomberg Group. A bunch of them have been convicted and sent to prison. That's why so many, over the last few months, at least 50 mayors have left Bloomberg Group. They don't want to be identified with this group anymore. Well, who would want to be identified with people like this? Federal felons. 866-TALK-GUN. Give me a holler. What's on your mind? Gun you want to tell me about? A range report you want to give me? Absolutely. We'll take those right now. 866-TALK-GUN.
Hi, I'm Michael Bain. You know I hate cleaning guns, so anything that makes that job faster and easier is definitely a plus. And that's where Board Tips come in. These reusable, lint-free cleaning swabs make cleaning a breeze. And the tighter-fitting Board Tips do a better job on barrels than cotton mops or patches. Hey, it's a dirty job. Let Board Tips help. To find a dealer, visit BoardTips.com.
What's that?
It's my Trijicon.
What's a Trijicon?
Only the best rifle scope in the world.
Says who?
How about the U.S. Marine Corps, Special Forces, Navy SEALs? You heard of these guys?
Sure.
Well, they're all using Trijicons.
Let me see it. Wow, this is really sharp.
And a lot of professional hunters are using Trijicon, too. You probably caught it on some TV and radio shows.
Yeah, I have heard some of them swear by their Trijicon.
I swear by it.
You know, I could have been a Navy SEAL.
Well, the closest you're going to get now is buying a Trijicon.
Hey.
Trijicon is the brand of rifle scopes that more and more hunters are swearing by. That's because every Trijicon is handcrafted using the finest optic materials. The bright aiming point can guarantee you a great hunt from dawn to dusk. Get your Trijicon at a dealer near you or visit them on the web at Trijicon.com. That's TRIJICON.com. Trijicon. Brilliant aiming solutions.
In the war on terror, fighting crime in the streets, in competition and homes around the world, one name in firearms stands out: Sig Sauer. Our pistols and rifles are renowned for their unfailing performance. This same commitment to excellence can be found in our line of SigTac accessories and the training offered by the Sig Sauer Academy. For unmatched quality, reliability, and innovation when it counts, choose Sig Sauer. Visit SigSauer.com today.
You already know Liberty Safes are great values. Now they're offering an even sweeter deal for Gun Talk listeners. At LibertySafe.com, click on the Fat Boy Safe and type in Tom. Liberty will give you up to $250 off your purchase. Protect the things you value most. LibertySafe.com, click the Fat Boy Safe, Promo code TOM. Save up to $250. That's LibertySafe.com. LibertySafe.com.
Want your opinion to make a difference? Log on to our website and take the Gun Talk poll. www.guntalk.com. Now, back to Tom.
All right, welcome back to Gun Talk, 866 Talk Guns. Let's go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, line 2. Bill's going to join us. Bill's a buddy with our great station, Talk 107.3 down there. Hey, how you doing, Bill?
I'm doing well, Tom. How are you?
I am good. You been talking about any of this stuff on radio?
Well, we talk about gun control a lot, and we've talked about Ray Nagin a lot over the last week, as you can imagine.
You bet.
We were following the trial and the verdict very, very closely. But, Gordon Hutchinson is a frequent expert on my show whenever we talk about guns and concealed carry permits. And I know you've got to move on, but, if people who are listening don't realize how egregious this was, there is video that you can see right now on YouTube. We had a lot of volunteer cops that came from all over the country to Baton Rouge and New Orleans after Katrina. And there is video of the California Highway Patrol taking a 74-year-old woman to the floor in her home by force to take away her .32 revolver that she wanted to keep handy for her own personal protection.
And of course, being from California, they didn't know what our laws were here, or they didn't care. Well, the Second Amendment
applies all over the nation.
Not in California.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
No, Bill, you're exactly right. And if people either have not seen that video or have forgotten about it, they need to see this, because these two big officers were talking to this little old lady, and they're saying, you got to leave. She says, no, I don't have to leave. I'm going to stay here. They say, well, it's not safe for you. And she says, no, it's safe here. I've got my little revolver. And she pulls it out. It's like holding it in the palm of her hand, not pointing at anybody. And when she showed them to demonstrate, hey, I've got my revolver, they took her down and took away her gun, left her there, but made sure that when they left, she was defenseless.
Yeah, and they took her down like a felony traffic stop. I mean, arm bar right to the ground, knee in the middle of the back. And this was just one of hundreds of cases. I mean, living so close, I know personally 7 or 8 people who got their guns grabbed after Katrina.
It's unbelievable. And people say, well, that could never happen in the United States. Well, it happens. Actually, it happens all the time. One of the questions is, it's a hard question, and Bill, and we're talking to Bill Profita from Baton Rouge from 107.3. It's a hard question to even ask on the radio, Bill, is what are you willing to do to keep that from happening? If somebody breaks into your house and they're wearing a police uniform, and you think they're breaking the law, what do you do?
I will tell you, most people, and very wisely, will say you're not going to argue with an overwhelming force that is armed,
Correct.
While you're standing in the front hallway of your home.
Correct.
But I do think that what a lot of people are doing, and what we have heard from a lot of our listeners, is there are two things that happen. One, there are people that have developed a tremendous fear of the police in times of emergency, not so much in Baton Rouge, but in New Orleans, because of things like this. And sooner or later, somebody's going to pull a trigger, and it's going to end very badly.
Right.
The other thing people are doing is they are saying, you're not coming into my home, you don't have a warrant, call your supervisor, bring your supervisor out here, I'm going to call my attorney, and we are going to explain to all of you how you cannot legally do this.
Now, the only way that works is if you don't open the door. That's the important thing, is you don't open the door. Bill, look, thank you so much for calling. Bill Profita from Baton Rouge, Talk 107.3 Radio, one of our great affiliates there. It's a hard question. It's a hard scenario to think through. And yet when you get these stories coming out of New Orleans and other places, but we've seen a lot of it in New Orleans, you sure have second thoughts about the whole deal. And look, people say, oh, you're a cop basher. No. I got lots of good friends who are cops. I work with cops. We train with police officers. And it's interesting. A lot of the ones I train with, you ask them, say, well, what would you do if you were ordered to confiscate guns? It's interesting. Talking to one whole group, they said, well, that's the day we all turn in our resignations. Done. A lot of good ones out there. 866-TALK-GUN will get you in here. What gun have you been shooting? What gun do you think you want to buy? What are you carrying today? That's what we want to know. Wait, who are you wearing?
You don't have to agree with Tom to participate in the show. Call now with any of your concerns about guns, gun rights, or particular firearms, or suggestions for your shooting activity or personal protection. 1-866-825-5486. Gun Talk is coming right back.
All right, back with you, Gun Talk here. Let's go straight to the phones on line 3. Chris Sereno has joined us. You probably know Chris from his time on Top Shot, and also this year going to be on Gun Talk television charts. So, hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Tom. I just was sitting here with Michelle listening in, and we, gosh, you're doing such a good job today. Of course, you had Chris Chang on, and we really like Chris, and we've been listening intently, and everything you say is fantastic. I mean, the fact that you're so involved in the research of the political nature of the gun ownership and the Second Amendment, and you speak about it in such a no BS fashion. We really enjoy sitting here listening to you.
Let me ask you something. You have a strong background in law enforcement. Every once in a while I get a police officer who says, well, you're just anti-cop when you say, don't open the door for the police or things like that. You know me. Am I anti-cop?
No, and I knew that was going to come up too, and as I was sitting here listening to it all, I got to tell you, I'm sometimes anti-cop. We're building such a force out there of paranoid people that they don't want to go hands-on. They don't want to get involved in any kind of confrontation. We've got tasers and pepper spray and batons, and it's not really what it used to be. And, of course, the people that are coming to law enforcement, there's still some great people out there, but there's a lot that are looking at it as a stepping stone. So there's a lot of variables out there, Tom, and you're not wrong in anything you say.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, and when I say I work with and am good friends with a lot of cops, you're one of them. When you've got federal and state, local law enforcement background, and as you say, you carry the master badge, so that takes care of it. Don't leave home without it, man.
And I was just up in the Chicago area teaching with a bunch of the men and women of law enforcement. Just put on 4 days of training up there, and what a fantastic group of folks. I really enjoy being involved with them still.
Yeah, everybody we work with from the law enforcement side has always been great. By the way, tell people about your training facility. As long as we got you on here, go ahead and give yourself a promo.
Oh, well, I don't have any facilities here, but I do have some friends that let me use their ranges local. I'm kind of a traveling road show, and I was just out in Glenview, Illinois, running a class there. Next 2 weeks from now, Michelle and I are going over to Colorado to do a class for civilians. So that's going to be exciting, and of course the shooting season's coming up. So we've been gearing up for that, and Michelle's working on her coyote season here because it's late hunting season and everything's put away, and now that's about all that's available for her.
Yeah, look, if Michelle's out there with a gun, the coyotes aren't safe. I can just tell you that.
Everybody would say the same thing.
Exactly. Well, look, best to both of you and the kids too. I know you got a real shooting family there.
Yeah, well, we just wanted to say hi. We heard you looking for callers, and Michelle said, you got to call. So
well, I appreciate it. And you and I are going to be getting together before too long. We'll do some shooting and a lot of video. You'll be seeing a lot of Chris on our TV shows. So Chris, thank you, and best to everybody. I don't know where this whole... You know what it is? You got some folks that are just hypersensitive. You can't say anything about my group or you're anti-my group. Well, come on. There's a bell curve everywhere. Not all gun owners are great. Some of them screw up. I got to tell you, I think that guy down in Florida, Dunn, I think he screwed up by the numbers. He got convicted on some counts. I think I got a mistrial on one. If you have an incident and you go back to your car and you get your gun, then you reinsert yourself into it. I don't know how in the world you claim self-defense on that. If you go back to your car, get in the car, close the door, crank it up, skinny pedal on the right, push it down, get out of there. That's what you do. That's how you get your wife, your girlfriend, your kids out of there. You don't insert yourself into something. Your job is to get away and make sure everybody's safe. Not to correct a wrong, not to arrest somebody, not to stop them, not to do anything else, just to be safe. That's your job. That's your only job. So you and your family all go home at the end of the day.
No black helicopters here, just the facts about gun rights and gun ownership. This is Gun Talk.